Welcome back to Coffee and Crochet. My name is Cora and today we are going to work on a single crochet. So to begin, just as we did with our slip stitch, we're going to start with making a chain. So slip knot, put that hook through there, make sure that the tightening end goes towards your ball of yarn. And I'm going to start by chaining 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So here are our 10 chains, and now we're going to go back and we're going to learn how to do our single crochet. Starts just the same as our slip stitch. We're not going to work in the stitch that we just came through. We're going to start one stitch away from our hook. We're going to pop that through, do a yarn over, but now with our slip stitch we pulled through both of our loops. For a single crochet, we're only going to pull through one loop at a time. So we're going to take that yarn over, pull it through just the first loop, so we still have 2 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over again, and now we're going to pull it through both of those loops. So it's a little bit of a misnomer if you ask me. A single crochet takes 2 steps. So here's our next hole. Pop through, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, maybe, yarn over, pull through 2. So a single crochet goes through, pull 1, through, over, pull 2, through, pull 1, over, pull 2, through, pull 1, over, pull 2, through, pull 1, over, pull 2. So single crochet, there you go. I've got a few stitches. I'll finish these next few in a couple. A single crochet is a very, very versatile stitch. It's short, it's compact, it's typically about as wide as it is high, so a really good stitch if you want to do graphs and inlays with changing colors. It makes it very easy to be able to grid that out. It's a tight stitch, so when you get a lot of these, you don't have a lot of gaps and holes. I know it kind of looks like it right now, but that's because I've been pulling the yarn and I've been doing it really loose to show you good holes. But a very versatile stitch, single crochet. And you are going to use this a lot. You'll see it abbreviated just as SC, single crochet. So definitely a good one to practice, because trust me, you will never not do a single crochet. I think every pattern I have ever used has at least one tucked in there somewhere. So next hole, poke it through, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Poke through, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Poke it through, here's my last stitch, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Now I'm going to turn my work, just like I did with our slip stitch, same thing. I'm going to do a single chain, flip my work over to the other side, and then off we go back going the other direction. Now I'm going to go through both of these 2 hoops, and unlike with the slip stitch, you can really see where that gap is between these single crochets. So it makes it really easy to find the holes. The nice thing about single crochet and about double crochet when we get to that is once you get used to doing it, you can feel where those holes actually are. So you might even find yourself getting to the point, if you're just doing a basic single crochet with the same thing over and over, you don't have to look at it as you crochet because those holes are so obvious where your hook is going to go through. So we're going to take our crochet hook, we're going to stick it right down through that hole, yarn over, pull it through 1, yarn over, pull it through 2. Right down through that next hole, boop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Again, do this 9 more times. Yes, we started with a chain of 10, but then we turned, so we end up with only 9 stitches. Yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, oops, I didn't quite get all my yarn that time. Let's try that again. Yarn over, pull through 2, and that's the challenge with using yarn that your cats have played with, is sometimes they tend to snag things and make little holes in yarn, and your hook will snag on those just as easily. So also depends on the shape of the hook. Some hooks I've found tend to snag a little bit more so than others, and then also depends on how much attention you are paying. if you're trying to talk as you're recording a video, sometimes it makes it a little harder. So this last hole gets a little harder to see, just like when we were talking with the slip stitch. Very important you don't forget it. If I were to turn and go back the other way, I would once again have this funky little nubby. So there is a stitch there. It really is. You can see 2 loops there. But when you're looking at it from this end, it can get a little twisty because of where you turned. So sometimes it ends up facing a little bit more cattywampus than the rest of the stitches. So there's still a teeny weeny little hole there. I'm going to make sure as I poke through that teeny weeny little hole though, I do get both 2 pieces of yarn here on top. Do my yarn over, pull through, and then one more time. Chain 1 to turn, go back down the other direction. We're going to do this row one more time. Oh, maybe 1. It's Friday when I'm recording this, so I think that right now my brain is just kind of done. That, and it's also craft fair season, so I have been doing a lot of crochet, and I think that my hands are about ready to go on strike at this point, or at least demanding higher pay, better, health care, all that good stuff. So here we are almost to the end of the row. You might hear my crochet hook and yarn is squeaking a little. Very typical with the acrylic yarns, especially on the plastic hooks. Acrylic yarn, plastic hook makes for some pretty screechy work, which is one of the reasons I don't tend to go with the plastic. The aluminum ones do, especially for me since I live in a place with a decent amount of humidity. Drier climates, you're probably not going to get quite that squeak, but I got a lot of humidity going on today because it's pouring rain outside, so we got a nice little squeaky sound as we go. So there's my single crochet. I've done how many rows now? Yes, let's talk about rows for a second. I'm just going to pull that out there so we can keep going. So crochet is worked in rows or rounds depending on the project that you are doing. And we'll use my scissors as a pointer because they're pointy. Here is our chain, our original chain stitch. And all you see of the chain right now is kind of just this little loopy because we crocheted through the other. So just like if you're on an Excel spreadsheet, you've got your rows which go side to side. With a single crochet, you actually get some pretty decent columns too, if you really wanted to geek out on it here, but we're more concerned about rows. So every time you go down, that's 1 row. You always count that chain as a row. So that was row 1. Then we went back across the other way, and you can see the thickness before little gaps. So here's row 2. Then we turned and went back the other way, again counting on the thickness. Here's row 3. And then we just finished row 4. So you can count the holes as well. 1, 2, 3. You just have to know that these holes aren't going to be as prominent yet because we haven't crocheted into them. 4. But those are both adequate ways if you want to count the actual stitches, which are a little easy because they're nice and thick, or if you want to count the holes. Just make sure you don't forget about the ones that you haven't created yet. So I'm going to do 1 more row with this particular piece of work here. And here we are at the end of our row. You'll notice now that I'm not on that first turn, it gets a little easier to see that last stitch just because of the way the stitches all work together. So there is 5. So I'm going to go ahead and do a chain 1 right now and pull it through, and I'm just going to snip that off because this is all I'm going to do. When you are done with your work, that's what you'll do, is you'll just continue to pull through so that you have this little tail. It gives you a nice little knot at the end of the crochet to stop your work from unraveling. So there is 5 rows of single crochet, well technically 4 rows of single crochet and 1 row of chain. I wanted to show you that versus here is 5 rows, well technically 4 rows of slip stitch and 1 row of chain. And this was the one that we did working in the back loops. And then to compare, here are the same number of rows worked in both loops. So you can see same number of stitches in every single one, I swear. If you actually wanted to sit there with a little pen and needle and a magnifying glass and count, same exact number of stitches, but very, very different sizes and shapes too. This is such a compact, dense stitch. You can see it's actually curving a little because the stitches are pushing themselves out at the edges where they can expand more. But this is a thick stitch. It's almost as thick this way as it is tall. So this was, again, slip stitch using both loops. This was slip stitch where I just worked in the loops that were away from me. And it creates a really cool ribbing there. Very, very similar to what you would get if you were knitting, only in knitting to create this pattern we would have been going this direction. But this is a really great way to get that knitted look without actually having to pick up a pair of knitting needles. And then here is our single crochet. So one other technique that you can do, this is also single crochet, but this was me single crocheting in the back loops, just like I did with the slip stitch. So not as tall of work, even though it's the same number of rows. And you're going to see I have this nice little ledge here. You can really see it from the top. There's a nice little ledge. So a good way, again, of making kind of this ribbed look. This is excellent to put the cuffs of sleeves and hats because you get some fun texture. And all I've done is the same thing I just did here, but I worked in back loops instead of going through both loops. So you'll notice it's definitely a tighter stitch that way too, and that's probably mostly me and my tension, because when I'm working the back loops, I do tend to create a little bit more tension. If you don't, then you end up with big gaps like that, as I have learned well. So all just, again, variations on the same theme. Here's your slip stitches, here's your single crochets, but just to kind of show you the versatility, that's all just changed by where you poke the hook. All right, I hope you tune in next time when we learn how to do the half double crochet. See you then.